Other wonderful. You're going out for dinner, but how do you split the bill? According to who had what, or who invited whom, or... Well, what about how much systemic privilege you suffer or enjoy? That's the premise of comedian Luna Malbroux's new app, EquiTable, which satirises the wage gap by splitting the check with adjustments for race, gender, and even whether or not you're the middle child. Now, she joined us from San Francisco. She's an African-American woman and young. I'm a white middle-aged dude. I asked her how we'd split the bill if we went out for a meal.
That's a great question. So I know you're in New Zealand, so I'm not sure how the numbers shake out there, but let's say we were dining in America and you were a US male, I would only pay 64% of like my half of the bill of, like, let's say we split it in half, and I'd pay 64% of that and you would pay a little bit more the other way around. So it kind of shakes out that way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. And the thing is, I reckon if we were having dinner together, I'd want to go to a more expensive restaurant than you because you're younger. You know, you're a comedian. We all know that you live on the smell of an oily rag, don't you comedians? So I'd be saying, let's go and eat somewhere really expensive and drink fancy wine. And you'd be going, no.
Exactly. Exactly. So, I mean, it's accounting for that too. So when you think about that, you think about you can probably afford a few more things more than I can. So it's a playful way of thinking about a different way that we can adjust bills when we go out to eat.
It's interesting that you have to do this, isn't it? Because this is fun and I'm enjoying it enormously on that level. But why do you have to remind people? Why do you have to do this to remind people about gender inequity and pay levels? Isn't that just a truth we should simply understand?
You know, John, it's been quite surprising to me how many people still don't believe that the wage gap based on gender or racial inequity exists, even though we have hard numbers and hard facts to back it up. So I'm a comedian by night, but also by day. I'm a teacher, I'm an educator, I've been a social worker. So I've been always told to, like, go where people are. And people love apps, and so I thought if you can actually play around with it and see the numbers in action, see how it actually shake up if you're actually paying something compared to what you get paid, then it might be a more tangible way for people to understand something that, you know, it's easy to understand, it seems to some, but some people are having a really hard time with it.
Have you noticed the gender difference in the responses? In other words, a woman saying to you, Luna, I knew that already, and a man going, oh, wow.
I think overwhelmingly, I've had really positive responses from many different genders, but I have seen more men, particularly white men, get a little upset about it in the United States. I don't know what's going on in New Zealand, but you seem really awesome. You seem happy about it.
So, what happens in a perfect world? Because boy, oh boy, I remember having these discussions when I first entered journalism, you know, which is a long, long time ago. How on earth do we close the gap so that when you and I go out to dinner, we can afford to pay the same amount?
You know, I think that's an interesting question because the fun thing about creating this app, one, it's comedy. It's comedic in nature, it's satirical, but it got me thinking, and I hope it gets more people thinking too, like maybe we should be a little bit more curious about different ways of closing the gap instead of waiting on some top-down approach of thinking of little ways that we can all kind of be aware of bias, be aware of discrimination based on gender, and maybe account for that in our daily lives in different ways. And it could be as simple as, you know, checking your bias when you're looking at how much you're paying people in your organization, or it could be paying a little bit more to make up for something. So I think if everyone kind of takes baby steps that feel good for them in a very positive and happy spirit, I think we can get there.
So the message of this is actually about self-awareness, isn't it? That we all take stock and we all look around and think, hey, you know, if the white man is earning a whole lot more than the brown or black or white woman, why is that?
Right. Let's question it. Let's explore it a little bit. Let's kind of get underneath that. And I think what I've seen, what I'm most excited about is whether people hate the idea of the app or love the idea of the app, they're talking about gender wage inequality and wage inequality. And that's the whole purpose, right, of being comical, of using satires to get people to actually think about real issues. So I think the app has already done its job, even though it's not actually out yet.
And Luna, if we did go out for dinner, what food would you pick? Where would we eat?
Oh my goodness. I would love to know about some New Zealand food. I haven't had much, but I'm originally from Louisiana. So I would take you out to get some jambalaya or some gumbo, something like that.